I'd like to introduce you to Firewall Huebsch.
Thanks, Mark. Thank you, Mark. Thank you all for being here. You know, there was an historic event that happened just about a week ago that didn't get much attention by most of the press, but we all saw it. In Minnesota, which is about walking distance from my home in the La Crosse area, Minnesota dropped out of the top 10 tax states in the nation for the first time in over 20 years. How did they do it? They just didn't raise taxes. That's all they had to do. Why would that possibly be? Because there are so many states in the country right now where the Democrats came in and took over, and they're raising taxes everywhere. Everywhere taxes are going up. And what my colleagues in Wisconsin, in the state assembly who are here today, and in the state senate are standing together in, is saying we will not raise taxes. And if we accomplish that, if we are able to go through this budget and get that done, and we make that stand, and we are that wall, Wisconsin could drop out of the top 10 tax states in the nation for the first time since 1964. Is that a goal to shoot for, ladies and gentlemen? I think so. In Wisconsin, in this nation, we know that if we want the economy to expand, if we want our state to succeed, if we want our country to prosper, it is not because of government. More often than not, it is in spite of government that will happen.
What we found is something that Ronald Reagan, I think, personified back in the early 1980s when he did not have a majority in the House. He had a slim majority in the United States Senate, but in the House, and that was to use the bully pulpit and go directly to the voters, to the people who make the difference. Because as we all know, far too few people contact their elected officials. And if you stay firm and stay true to a message, sooner or later, sometimes later, but sooner or later, the elected officials are ultimately, when pressed, going to do what's right and what's ultimately the best interest of the taxpayers of not just our county, but every county and every part of the state of Wisconsin.
But yes, I broadcast inside the occupied territories in Madison, Wisconsin. And if I may, since I happen to have a bird's eye view of our fine Capitol building, just say a few words about the upcoming budget and the governor's insistence that he's not raising taxes. Our debt grows and grows, and it is now expected to grow to $9 billion. If our bills came due, we couldn't pay them. If our bills came due, we'd have to sell off state roads and probably sell the naming rights to the state capitol, which wouldn't be a bad idea considering it seems that in some people's estimation we already have done that. We could have like a road builders wing and a WEAC wing and a tribal casino wing. What the hell? We're not going to have a taxpayers wing, though, that's for sure. That is, unless we do something about the current state of affairs in the state capitol. The governor said he wouldn't raise taxes. He is a liar. He is a flat-out liar.
I am delighted to be here and to have a chance to talk about what needs to be done both in Madison and in Washington for us to have the kind of future that we want to have as a country. I also want to start, though, by thanking both Americans for Prosperity and the Club for Growth, which have been very committed to developing the kind of ideas that will make America more prosperous and more successful. So now let's take just a minute and talk about what's going on in Madison. You know, I came in at this point. In 1986, I came to speak at a Republican state convention the year Tommy Thompson was nominated the first time, when you had a liberal Democratic governor who had raised taxes, killed jobs, driven people into leaving the state, and people were really worried about the future of the state. Tommy Thompson, along with John Engler and Mike Leavitt, were among the great reform governors who began to reform government, create new ideas, develop new approaches, create welfare reform, create school choice, cut taxes, bring back jobs. And I feel like I'm back at the same stand. Now notice, the state's getting a huge increase in revenue this year because the economy's growing. If anything, there ought to be a tax cut and the revenue increase ought to come home. Raising taxes kills jobs. I hope all of you will contact your state representatives and your state senators and will indicate that they should only vote for a budget that has no tax increase, period. There's a very simple line to draw in the sand. You'd be happy with a tax cut. You will not accept a tax increase. That's that simple, that complicated. The Republicans actually ought to offer a tax cut budget and give half the increase in revenue back, and then let the people of Wisconsin choose between a tax increase, bigger bureaucracy, more special interest, more lobbyists, higher taxes budget, and a lower taxes budget. And then you ought to start going through the entire Wisconsin government, item by item, migrating it from the world that fails into the world that works.